Every once in a while, a topic comes along that, well, forces us to rethink what we think we know about wartime survival. This is one of those topics. If you've spent years digging through archives, personal field reports, or veteran memoirs, you've probably come across surprising little moments where soldiers and civilians managed to stay warm in conditions that should have been impossible. The truth is, a huge portion of World War II survival didn't happen with rifles or rations. It happened in the freezing dark, with people figuring out how to stop themselves from freezing to death. And the methods they used were not glamorous, not romanticized, and usually not recorded in official manuals. These were the hacks used when stoves were gone, firewood was soaked, and fuel was either non-existent or needed for the vehicles that kept armies alive. For the next few minutes, I want you to set aside the modern conveniences, the insulated jackets, the chemical hand warmers, and step into the mindset of people who had nothing but desperation, ingenuity, and the will to make it to morning. These 8 forgotten World War II heating hacks are not theories, not campfire tales. They're pulled straight from field accounts, prisoner-of-war testimonies, and civilian survival stories that rarely make it into mainstream documentaries. And as you'll see, a lot of these old tricks can still be applied today, especially for preppers and anyone who understands that warm shelter can be the difference between life and death. Let's get into the real methods our predecessors used when all normal heat sources failed. How soldiers created body heat traps using ground insulation when shelter was impossible. One of the simplest but most overlooked World War II warming hacks involved insulation, not above the body, but beneath it. Soldiers on the Eastern Front learned quickly that sleeping directly on frozen ground pulled heat faster than cold air ever could. They began layering anything available under their bodies: straw, evergreen boughs, canvas sacks filled with leaves, even enemy propaganda leaflets. The trick wasn't about comfort, it was about trapping a layer of air that the body could warm. Civilians in besieged cities used similar strategies by lining floors with old clothing or rolled newspapers before lying down. Today, a prepper could replicate this in a power outage or survival situation by using cardboard spare clothing, old rugs, or even stacked plastic bags filled with anything dry. It's primitive, but it works because the physics haven't changed since 1941. Now, let me tell you how wet uniforms were dried using radiant heat from buried metal containers. On multiple fronts, especially in the Balkans and Italy, soldiers discovered that burying a metal container filled with hot rocks or coals created a radiant warmth that lasted for hours and could dry clothing without open flames. It was safer during nighttime operations and, well, harder for enemy patrols to detect. The technique was simple enough. Heat stones, place them into an empty ration tin or ammo box, bury it just below the surface, and then lie over the warmed ground. Civilians use the same trick with bricks heated in communal ovens. These days, modern survivalists can adapt this by heating stones near any controlled heat source, like a grill, camp stove, or even a solar oven, and placing them under a layer of earth or thick material to create a radiant bed for slow, smokeless drying. Now, let's talk about how POWs and frontline troops used improvised charcoal heaters made from scrap metal. In many prison camps, open fires were strictly forbidden. So, prisoners built micro-heaters using powdered charcoal stolen from workshops, mixed with a binder made from water and scrap cloth fibres. This slow-burning mixture went into tiny improvised metal tins pierced with ventilation holes. The heat output was low but steady, just enough to warm hands, thaw boots, or heat a small shelter without any visible flame. Troops in the Ardennes adapted similar tin heaters using crushed coal pellets or even smouldering sawdust. Anyone today with basic tools could replicate this using a metal can, a few vent holes and compressed biomass pellets, making a near-smokeless heater that lasts for hours. How soldiers shared body heat using layered clothing, compression pockets. Contrary to popular belief, soldiers didn't always huddle for warmth. Many units developed a method of creating compression pockets between layers of clothing by stuffing spare shirts, scarves, or even paper between uniforms. This forced warm air to collect in specific areas, chest, kidneys, thighs, allowing one soldier to hold heat far longer. It also made night watches survivable without fires. Civilians trapped in bombed-out buildings used this same idea by stuffing coats with wool scraps or shredded upholstery. Anyone today can replicate this during extreme cold by layering loosely, then adding bulk layers in the gaps rather than over the top. You know, many people forget that snow can actually serve as insulation. Finnish soldiers perfected this by carving snow caves that maintained temperatures near freezing, even when outside temperatures hit -30 degrees Celsius. That's life-saving warmth compared to open air. German and Soviet infantry dug shallow earth pits topped with canvas, snow or timber to trap rising body heat and block wind. Modern campers know this trick well, but preppers can also use it in emergencies. A snow cave, debris hut or earth pit can drastically cut heat loss and doesn't require fuel of any kind. Now let's talk about how heated stones wrapped in cloth became portable, long-term hand warmers. Throughout the war, heated stones were used as makeshift thermal batteries. Civilians carried them under coats during evacuations, and soldiers slipped them into boots or bedrolls. The key was wrapping the stone in cloth to retain heat and prevent burns, while radiating warmth for hours. In a modern blackout, this technique works with bricks, pavers or ceramic tiles heated over even a weak heat source, then insulated with cloth. How food tins became efficient alcohol and fat-burning heaters. In many theatres, soldiers used tiny amounts of alcohol, fuel tablets, or even rendered animal fat inside ration tins to create compact heaters. They didn't boil water. They produced concentrated personal warmth. The tins focused the heat upward toward hands or feet, and lids could be adjusted to control burn rate. Today, someone could do the same with a small can, a wick, and, well, a tablespoon of cooking oil when no other heat source is available. How drying shelters with body heat alone kept units alive in frozen trenches. Some units built miniature shelters inside tents or ruins using blankets or spare coats hung low to create a tiny compartment that trapped heat from only 2 or 3 men. Temperatures inside often rose by 10 to 15 degrees. Modern preppers could recreate this in a room during a winter power outage. by, pitching a camping tent indoors and sleeping inside it to consolidate warmth. These 8 methods are proof that necessity truly is the mother of invention. WWII survivors didn't rely on ideal circumstances. They created warmth from nothing. And if you're watching The Prepper Historian, chances are you appreciate that kind of knowledge and the responsibility of keeping it alive. If you want more forgotten techniques, more real history, and more practical survival insights, make sure you subscribe, share this video, and keep this channel growing.